Mindset shift is not going to be enough for you to become truly an extraordinary leader. Lead from your highest potential of self with more ease, with more joy. Make a lasting impact. Build thriving teams, high performing teams and organizations, and truly be more fulfilled. This level of leadership requires a deeper shift and a deeper transformation. That is also where embodiment comes into place. And in this episode, I want to share with you the very first important milestone in the journey of embodiment and a deeper shift, deeper transformation that you need in order to step into that leader that you are truly meant to be. And that building block, that very first step or shift, if you like, is allowing you to get from the mind to the body when actually the transformation happens, and is and has accelerated not only the transformation and shift for so many of my clients, since I bring it to all of them, and of course, it did the same for me. And if you're here watching and listening and coming back again, I want to say thank you very much for following me in this podcast journey. And thank you for being here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is a great time to do so, to be alerted and know where these podcast episodes are coming. And also that really, really supports me into creating this episode and spreading actually this awareness with more leaders. So thank you very much for subscribing to this channel, commenting, and also sharing what each of these episodes evoke in you. And if you are new to this channel, I want to welcome you. My name is Dagmar Asprek. If we don't know each other yet, I'm transformational executive coach, founder of External Leadership, and host of this podcast as well. And I'm absolutely passionate and committed into helping leaders like yourself to embody extraordinary leadership and really lead from the place of fullness and make a bigger impact and create, of course, the desired life as well. So going back to today's episode, mindset work is not going to be enough for stepping into extraordinary leadership. In order to lead from this place of your highest potential, making a desired lasting impact, building thriving and high-performing teams and organizations, and being fulfilled, in order to lead from that level of leadership, presence, energy, identity, and being, you need something deeper. You need to transform on a deeper level. And this is also why you may have already done some work on your limiting beliefs and on mindset, changing and shifting your perspectives and a way of looking at the things, which is really a very important stepping stone. But maybe what also you experience is that under pressure, you notice that you're falling into the patterns of your autopilot, of your old self. And it can show up in many different ways. Maybe you know you want to create more space for yourself, take more breaks, create a space for slowing down, for intentional work. And in reality, you don't do so because you kept in your busy patterns and of doing a lot of things at the same time or being everywhere. Maybe you want to take the power back and respect your needs, respect your boundaries, and set those boundaries and leave those boundaries. But instead, you are still prioritizing other needs over yours. Maybe you want to show up as a bold and courageous leader, and you've done already shifts of beliefs around that. But when it comes to reality, you're still avoiding that conversations or feel that resistance in your body. Or maybe you know that what will benefit you is to be more empathic and compassionate, but you struggle with that in the moment. You understand the concept, you shifted the beliefs, you understood the things, but you're still struggling with really living that and being that, embodying that. Those are just a couple of examples that you might be facing despite having done, mindset work, changing your beliefs, finding out what are the limiting beliefs that hold you back. That is also may still show up, even if you've done leadership development programs, read many leadership books. And the reason for why it is showing up is because you haven't embodied the desired transformation. You haven't embodied yet the leader that you're really truly meant to be, that is within you and your highest potential. And that is where embodiment come into place. Because transformation, stepping from your current self to that next level self, I like to call it your higher self, require a deeper level of shift that do not happen just on the intellectual level and your mind or mindset. It happens in your body, in your subconscious mind, in your energy. And this may already explain to you why certain things happens despite years of work, months of work, wherever you are, you're still not there where you want to be. And I totally resonate with that because I've been there too. I'm 10 years in my journey of transformational journey from within. And I also started in the mindset work. I also started with understanding the beliefs and shifting the beliefs. And that has had its role. And it was really eye opener for me at the beginning. But at some stage, I started to notice that there is something more because I started to feel continuous resistance in really embracing the change that which I wanted to embrace and stepping into that version of myself, more bold, authentic, trusting, conscious leader. And this is where I discovered what I'm sharing with you today. So, the way I see the mindset work is the door opener to your next level self. It's where we get new ideas. It's where we shift perspectives, where we shift our thinking. But the work of embodiment is what is really going to help you to go through that door, to step from your current self to that next level version of yourself. More bold, more authentic, more aligned, radiating a completely different energy and presence. And of course, leading from a completely different mindset and being, because that's what embodiment is about. It's about shifting in your identity, shifting in your being, in your core, and of course, automatically in your energy that you transpire. And that energy, of course, is, you probably know from other episodes, is what makes a difference, is that energy that is making an impact or making people feel a certain way or communicates and influences. So the question, of course, arises, how do we shift from the mere mindset work to more embodied work, embodied transformation? What are the processes? What are the different ways of embracing apart from shifting beliefs? And this is what I want to share with you today. In fact, I want to share with you the very first process, stepping stone, phase, whichever way you want to call it, that I love to bring to my clients, that I discovered myself a couple of years back. And since then, it made a huge difference in my life. It's also made a huge difference in my clients. It accelerates basically transformation. And the moment I have started to use it, I stopped to use other, I would say, more conventional limiting belief shifting models in coaching, because I've basically seen the speed of the transformation by shifting from a mindset and belief work to embodied experience. And that game changing first phase in this process is mental fitness from positive intelligence. It has been actually created, designed by Shirzad Shamin, who is Stanford professor, who is author of a book of positive intelligence. If you haven't read or heard about this book, highly, highly recommendable. And he has developed a framework that is so practical and helps us really in a fastest way, first of all, raise a deeper awareness of why we act in a certain way, why we trapped into our autopilot. And of course, secondly, it helps us in a very practical way, backed up with neuroscience, backed up with cognitive behavioral psychology, performance science, helps us to bring a framework that is very pragmatically helping us to shift those different wired inside ourselves, autopilot behaviors. And each of us have this, right? Each of us have this thing that we're working on and we want to shift. Either we want to be more empathic, we want to be more bold, we want to be more confident, we want to be more courageous, we want to take more risks, we want to be more listening than talking. I'm sure that you listening to me, you know very well where you would like to shift or what would you like to change just to be a better version of yourself and better, more impactful leader. But at the same time, You probably, as many other leaders would agree, changing that, it's not so easy because, as for many leaders, and it was in myself as well in the past, we are not given the right tools in order to do that. And by accessing the mental fitness from positive intelligence, this has been one of those highly, highly valuable resources that again transformed my way of being and, of course, thinking and doing, as well as all of my clients. So, what Shizat Shamin has researched and found out through his studies and through his actually personal experiences is the reason why we are so resistant to change and do not change sustainably any of our human behaviors is because we are trapped in a mind sabotage, in different narratives that we are even not aware about that are running on autopilot. And he has classified those different mind saboteurs. He developed a framework around that with 10 saboteurs that he then gave a label them and gave them a shape, gave them a form, gave them a narrative, gave them an impact. Some of them, just to give a couple of names, judge, whereas every of us is having and knowing this inner, deep inner criticizing ourselves, others, and the situation. The hyperachiever, the pleaser, the avoider, the stickler, the hyper rational, hyper vigilant, and so on. So he has really helped us, I would say, to understand with this framework, first of all, what is the root cause of actually the limiting beliefs, all those different narratives, and our behaviors at the end. Why are we at the end falling into the trap of where we know we want to do something else, but we still fall into the trap? Why are we not taking a break where we already know that that's meant for us and that is what help our performance and well-being? Why are we still giving in and pleasing others where we know that we want to stand in our own power, in our own respect to our needs? And the reason for that are mind saboteurs, deeply, deeply wired patterns of thinking in our subconscious mind, patterns wired in our brain and part of our current identity. And these saboteurs and their narratives and the patterns of thinking, feeling, being, and triggers is deeply anchored in our subconscious mind, part of our identity, and it grows up. And it's something that has been developed very early on in our lives. First of all, to protect us to survive. But later on, we don't really need them, but they become part of our identity and we don't actually notice them anymore. So I was also absolutely unaware about their existence, their narratives, their impact. We just blinded until we come across a framework of mental fitness. We're pretty unaware about them. And each of these saboteurs has a different impact on our, first of all, well-being, on our performance, but also of our relationships and our impact as leaders. And most of us are not aware that for most of our days, we are driven by our saboteurs sabotaging us in our actions, in our behaviors, in the way we lead, in the way we decide, in the way we feel. And I want to talk about some of these traps and some of these examples so that becomes more clear for you what I'm talking about. So let me start by sharing a couple of examples, actually. One of my clients, CEO, who has been appointed for his new CEO role, has very ambitious, very talented leader who has been very fast climbing up his ladder to come to a CEO, came to me because as he was in this new role of the CEO, he really noticed that his organization is not engaged at a level he desired to be. So there was lack of engagement, lack of proactivity, and lower level of ownership in the organization and teams. He also noticed that when it goes about his own leadership, he had difficulty to really connect and build empathy with people. And when we started working together, we could see how that one affects the other, right? Being an empathic leader and being a leader that can foster connection leads, of course, to people feel safe, trusted, seen, valued, and so on. And his pattern, which we figure out by very quick assessment of positive intelligence and mental fitness, his pattern was tied into hyper-rational pattern. And hyper-rational pattern in his case was showing up in this way. He was a rational decision maker and also showing up as a rational leader. And his main focus was on solving the problems. So whenever he came to the conversation with people, he already most likely knew his answer of how to solve the problem. And of course, he was very fast in offering the solutions, but not giving a space for people to come with their own solutions. And that was one of the reasons how, of course, it leads to lower engagement and lower ownership because people didn't have space to think, to come up with their own ideas, and actually then stand behind those ideas and implement them. The other pattern he noticed from understanding the saboteur hyper rational is that he was actually suppressing emotions, first of all, for himself as a protection mechanism built on very early on, but also in conversations with others. So, how did that show up? He was coming to a meeting with employees and he was very fast moving into the matter, into the transactional conversation on projects, on tasks, on strategies, on things that needs to be done in the business. And he completely neglected the emotional connection with people, understanding how they are being, how they are feeling, where are they, and maybe even if they are ready for that conversation or what's bothering in their life. And maybe they need a different support. Maybe they want to be listened and given a space for because they are challenged. So he didn't create that space because he was as trapped in a first unconscious thinking and bias of hyper rational thinking that emotions do not have a place in leading. They actually derail from getting to the best solution and leadership. That was the samples of narratives that his hyper rational was bringing. And of course, that has created disconnection and didn't allow him to really understand people, connect with people, and build psychological safety and space and trust. And of course, this all was causing lower engagement, lower ownership, lower productivity or proactivity, and obviously show up also in performance at the end. So by assessment and by unpacking in a very efficient way what are the drivers, what is the saboteur that is driving his behaviors, we gain a lot of time that we normally would spend in coaching sessions into understanding really what is the root of the situation in his organization. And then by embracing the strategies and habits that mental fitness itself offers, that leader has been able to not only reduce the voice of that saboteur, hyper rational here in this example, but he was able with those different practices and habits that we have embraced to actually connect with himself, to step into being more empathic leader, to step into being better listener, more curious. And when he was showing in conversation as a result of this, he was much more relaxed. He was much more curious and people focused. He started to ask questions rather than give solutions. And of course, he turned around the trust, the safety, the inspiration, the ownership, and how the people responded and how the people showed up from their own. That has shifted the dynamic in his organization, his team. And of course, personally, it made him the next level leader, the version of himself. It helped him to step into that leader that he truly desired to be. He knew who he wants to be more of. But before working together, he didn't know how to tap into that. So that's one example and one saboteur example where that work of understanding on a deeper level what is the root of your behaviors and shifting from the mind to the body and making those shifts on a deeper level has accelerated transformation in his organization. And probably if I would not expose to mental fitness work, that would have taken much longer and most likely certain things would never connect the dots because until we come to realize that we have mind saboteurs in our mind, we may spend a long time finding it out. It's very difficult to find. We probably will never get there. So while you're listening to me, you might want to ask yourself, is that maybe the pattern that I'm having? Maybe that's hyper rational that drives my behaviors. Am I really think that emotions are not having a place in business? Am I having difficulty to be empathic and connect with people? Am I suppressing my own emotions? Am I too logical and rational in my decision taking? Am I just thinking that solutions, they are problems and they are solutions? And that's the only thing that matters. A couple of examples of how hyper rational is possibly showing up. and it may resonate with you. Let me give you another example. Let's talk about judge. One of my client, another client who is a C-level leader in a big organization, and he came to me when he was again in his new role. Someone who's bring over 20 years of experience, someone who has been in coaching, someone who has been in therapy, someone who has even get a first coaching courses in order to coach as a leader. So someone that is very aware and somebody that has been in a transformational work already. The reason he came to me is because that new role that he took in that organization was a bigger challenge, was a bigger leadership challenge that he was dealing with. And the change that he wanted to bring in organization was met with a lot of resistance in his organization and the whole organization. Simply, he found himself to be the only change maker, or at least thinking differently, having a different mindset, and wanting to bring others into the same level of alignment and change. And of course, that was met with resistance. So, as a very aware and conscious leader, he came to me because he knew that there is some work to do on his side. And very quickly on, in the first 2 months, or actually in the first session, we have identified that the most likely reason and root cause of this resistance has been anchored in two saboteurs, in judge and in hyperachiever, actually. Now, judge is the type of saboteur that brings a lot of criticism, that beats you up. First of all, yourself. That's actually a root cause of imposter syndrome. So, is that voice in your head that is telling you that you should have been better, that you shouldn't have made a mistake, and all of that? But it's also the same voice that is criticizing others, that is looking what is wrong with them, why they don't get me, why they are doing it that way. They shouldn't. They don't get it. And it's also the same voice that is criticizing the situation, judging the situation, and not seeing that from a natural perspective, without emotions, without narratives. So in that very early 1 or 2 months, we've been able not only to recognize that the judge has been one of the main driver of his communication, which was more judgmental communication to his people, and of course causing the resistance from people that he wanted to embrace the change. And in these first 2 months, on top of that, of course, we've been embracing those different habits and practices of mental fitness again. And I remember him saying that he liberated himself from things he was not imagining is possible. And one of the deepest things he has liberated himself from is the trap that so many leaders fall into of I'm not good enough, which of course was fueled by the judge narratives. So he felt a deep sense of liberation in his body. Liberation, not only intellectually in the mind, but on the body level, which brings peace, ease, joy, and trust. And that, of course, shifted his energy. He also started to see people from a more empathic lens rather than judgmental lens, because timing the voice of your judge is making a shift how you see people. All of a sudden, you see people from a different lens. And of course, that shifted his behavior, his way of communication, his level of coaching and quality of questions that he was asking as a leader in conversations with people, and allowed him to bring his team and bring all the stakeholders with so much more ease and success into this transformation that he came for. And so I remember we're celebrating the moments very early on in our journey, because that's how fast this transformation happens. In literally 2 months, he started to see that the resistors started to be his supporters, that people started to contribute to the change rather than resist the change. And you know very well how difficult it is to, and you as a leader that lead a change, that lead a team or lead an organization and wants to introduce something new, you know exactly what it means to lead a change. And you know how difficult it can be and how much resistance is causing slowing down of change implementation. So obviously he was in awe how much can be possible in just 2 months. On top of that, not only we have been celebrating and witnessing those shifts which were felt in the body, shifts in his identity, shifts in his energy, shifts in his way of communication, and the way people responded to him, but also he starts to get positive feedback from his friends, from his family, and his relationship with his family improved, because that level of transformation make a ripple effect. It doesn't only improve situation in one area of your life, but in whole area in your life. Last example I want to share is an example of a leader who worked also in a huge pharmaceutical organization. And she came to me very aware and also have done lots of mindset work and beliefs shifting. And she came because she wanted to embody more or be more of a transformational leader. And what does it look like for her was to be more empathic, more compassionate, and leading from a place of love, not from a place of fear. So very aware leader. And she came to me because obviously at some level she felt she didn't yet realize that, despite mindset work, despite many different coaching sessions and abilities to coach herself. And when we started the journey and really realized very quickly on as well which of the saboteurs are in a workplace here, judge and pleaser, has been playing an instrumental role and creating that barrier of not being able to lead from the place of empathy and compassion. Understanding that from a concept point of view, from the mindset, from the intellectual point of view, yes, but not embodying that, not being that in the moment in the different situations. And I remember very well when situation really came as an example, there was a conflict, that there was misunderstanding of, let me say, as she faced a conflict with one of the key stakeholders in that very moment, she fell into the trap of a judge and a pleaser saboteur. She couldn't embody empathy and compassion yet. In that very moment, she was judging the other person and even going into the patterns of victimhood, why it's happening to her again. And this was a moment of shift into awareness, of noticing that she is not embodying leadership with empathy and leading from compassion, leading from a place of love, from a place of alignment that she stands for. Now, with practices and habits of mental fitness, as well as energy work, which is the natural next step, she has been able to reduce the voice of the saboteurs and step into embodying that level of leadership that she desired. And that, of course, started to create a ripple effect, improve the relationship, improve her bold communication, rather than pleasing behaviors, right? Setting boundaries, and shifted the dynamic in relationship with that person and made her really embody that next level self that she really truly desired. Again, this didn't happen because we were shifting mere beliefs. That job has already been done. That has happened because we moved from the work in the mind to the work in the body, because that is where transformational shifts are taking place. And I wonder, when you are hearing me, which of these possible cases you might be currently at. So this work is deeply, deeply transformational, creating a lasting change and sustainable change, allowing you to change sustainably and actually allowing you to accelerate the transformation. And that shift from thinking to being is where embodiment and one of this first stepping stone, which is mental fitness, that is serving towards too. So I guess now you asking yourself this question: how does this work? How do I go from the mind to the body? How do I shift on that deeper level? How do I embody who I want to be more of, instead of just conceptually grasp it and understand it on my mind level? How do I be it, in other words? So I want to share with you two things. First, the high level process. It all starts with awareness. So in order to shift it in the body, as I share with you in those different examples, we started with understanding what is the root cause of those behaviors, which of the saboteur, in other words, is in the driver's seat of your behaviors. So the first is awareness, which with the mental fitness framework, we can accelerate by assessment. And this is where we usually typically start from. This is brief. This is something that you can actually even access after watching this podcast on a website. This assessment is actually for free. And I will put a link to that assessment in the comment below. The second is, of course, developing the habit to catch yourself. Developing the habit to really know when it happens in the moment. And this is what we practice in the first 7 weeks of the mental fitness, supported with a lot of fantastic habits and processes and techniques that are in the app of mental fitness and positive intelligence that become a companion, if you like, for you on a daily basis. The third is about shifting yourself from the mind to the body. The moment you catch yourself, you can shift, right? And shifting is not about the mindset work, about going into the narratives and changing the narratives in your mind. It's about literally dropping from the mind to the body. So it's about practices that brings you to that shift, that allow you to shift in a very few moments into your body. In other ways, refocus from your mind, which is busy, which is most likely in survival mode, and running and spinning, towards body senses, towards the smell, towards the breath, towards touch, the different senses. And again, we call it a PQ in a mental fitness framework, which is closest to, if you like, mindfulness. And the difference is that mindfulness and that PQs are absolutely game changer because they can be extremely effective in a very, very short time, even with 2 minutes when we do it consistently with the practice. So we become master in shifting the state thanks to those different PQ practices that we also embrace during along the journey of mental fitness. And the fourth step is shifting energy, shifting perspective, shifting your being. Again, in mental fitness, we have a couple of powerful techniques to access our so called sage. I call it your higher self, authentic true self, inner wisdom. So, that part of you that is liberated from sabotaged mind, if you like. And when we're able to tap to that part of ourselves, they are limitless resources. This is where we are able to tap into empathy, innovation, boldness, authenticity, and presence. These are the different types of capabilities, if you like, and resources that we all have, but we cannot access them before we reduce the voice of our saboteurs. And before that, of course, we even recognize that they exist. So if you like, these 4 steps are comprising to this first phase of embodiment, which is shifting from the mind to the body and is shifting on that deeper level and rewiring, if you like, from inside on a deeper level, your subconscious. And you can really sense it, you can really feel it. And there is a lot of neuroscience behind that practices, behind this step-by-step approach that also is, of course, provided into that 7 weeks of mental fitness and positive intelligence. And in the book of positive intelligence, there are a lot of science, neuroscience, a lot of studies that if you like to find out more, you can read through. But all of this has been, of course, consciously designed. And those practices helps you to basically connect a different neurons in your brain and shift really your not only thinking by being your responses that different responses that I give you that my clients were able to realize that I shared with you at the beginning. So that's how the process looks like. And that's what we of course practice in just about 7 weeks. And it's really, really absolutely revolutionary what in the 7 weeks can be achieved. And I'm absolutely in awe each time I'm bringing to clients. Another client is on, I think, the 3rd week of it. And so many things we already celebrated, so much awareness, so much shift, so much peace, so much trust. It's just always really, really revolutionary how this framework actually supports the transformation and embodiment in that very first step. And all of you to really lean into being more and more that version of yourself that you want to be more of as a leader and make the desired impact. Now, I said I want to share with you 2 things. So, what's the second thing? The second thing is this: if you really truly would like to find out more about mental fitness, go a little bit deeper to what I'm sharing here today and experience even for yourself some of these practices that I just described, not on an intellectual level, but on a visceral level. On the 5th of March, I'm running a workshop, which is absolutely complimentary for you. And in this workshop, I'm going to go deeper into mental fitness and its practices, which are the very first stepping stones and phase, if you like, in embodiment process and becoming that extraordinary leader yourself. Joining that workshop will give you an absolute possibility, first of all, to not only understand mental fitness, but experience some of these practices that we talk about. So yes, you're going to experience that. That's why it's called workshop. It's going to help you to deepen the awareness that you already have on some level about what needs to change. But trust me, you're going to walk out with so much more awareness on why things happen, what are the narratives playing in your mind, what are the saboteurs that are dominant that are currently really costing your leadership, costing your life, your well-being, your performance, your relationships, and how that actually shows up. And thirdly, we are going to unpack, judge the master saboteur, the saboteur that is really causing everybody challenges And that's the noise, that's the voice, that is your inner critic criticizing God or criticizing situation that, believe me, everybody has. And if you believe you don't have it, then you're even more affected by it. So you are going to walk out from this workshop with so much more awareness, with practices that you can start to practice on your own, and of course with clarity of how the journey of mental fitness really look like in practice, because I will also introduce you to that. And this is a very unique and very exclusive workshop. This is actually what I normally do with my clients as a very first stepping stone to help them to raise the awareness, to prepare for the journey of the mental fitness, and to really experience that not only in mind level, but also on a visceral level. So that's really very unique. And that is your very unique opportunity to discover and experience that in practice. So if that resonates with you, if you want to shift from mere mindset work and you feel that there is something more and you are someone more and you look for something more, you want to make this bigger impact, you want to be the leader that is the change maker, you want to lead your organization and team to the next level, you want to unleash the potential within your team and within yourself, and you above all want to make yourself to the next level and fully step into that next dimension of your leadership, more bold, more authentic, more conscious, more successful, more fulfilled, then I invite you to be in that workshop. That's going to be an incredible experience for you. And I already can't wait to see you there. So 5th of March, the link to the sign up of the workshop is going to be here below in the description of this episode. And if that resonates with you and you want to step to your next level, I can only invite you wholeheartedly to be there. And I can't wait to see you there. And for now, I'm thanking you for staying with me until the end. Wishing you a fantastic week ahead, and see you next time, and see you hopefully as well in the workshop.